Hi, everybody. This is Maxine Taylor, and I've got my forecast for February 2022 right here and ready to go. And before I get into the February forecast, for those of you who would like a forecast for the United States, a more long-range forecast, my suggestion would be that you go to raisingthevibe.org, raisingthevibe.org. There you will find a webinar I did for that organization that I'm calling USA 2022 and Beyond, because as I looked beyond 2022, I saw some things that were very unsettling to me, and I realized that this is very important information that we actually, as a nation, can use on its highest and best level. In other words, it's more than just voting. It's transforming, and that begins with each one of us. So that particular webinar goes from 2022, which I just kind of touch on, through 2039. It's just a little over an hour in length. I think you'll find it fascinating. I hope you find it helpful and inspiring. So here's February, and we've got a lot going on here. So I'm going to break it down, as I always do, very, very simply. And so you have the whole picture. And I'm going to continue my monthly forecasts for the United States. So hang in there, fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be interesting. First of all, let's take a look at the sun, because as we know, the sun is the giver of life. It is the center of our life. Wherever it is, that is the main focus. In the United States, we start off with the sun in the 9th house. Now, today is February 1st. That means on the 4th, of course, Mercury is going to go direct. See, there was the first retrograde sign. My lips don't work as a team. So it's been in the 9th house. Now, the 9th house in a mundane chart rules the upper courts, foreign affairs, foreign travel, higher education. There's a lot that's been going on our colleges, on our campuses. Our whole life has been affected by COVID. We are not alone in that. And I have more to say about that in just a little bit. Higher education, religion, advertising, science, insurance, the Supreme Court, philosophy, world trade, and tying higher education into it, universities. And this means that the emphasis has been on these areas, particularly international correspondence and trade. I don't have to tell anybody in this country what that means for us, how it has been affecting us. On the 3rd, in just a couple of days, it will sit on our midheaven. Now, the midheaven is the highest point in the chart. It is the cusp of the 10th house, and the 10th house in a mundane chart rules the president, the party in power, all of our leaders, and our public image. Now, our public image, a country's public image is international. It's global. So on the 3rd, when the sun enters our 10th house, the center of our attention is going to be on the Democratic Party because the 10th house is the party in power. And the light shines on the party in power when the sun moves into the 10th house. Hello. It then sits on the moon. Now, the moon rules money. The moon in the 10th house represents the president. We have an Aquarius moon, which is very unique, very different. And remember, when our country was birthed, it birthed a whole new concept in government. And so that is what is triggered. This gives our country a shot in the arm. And I'm not talking about the COVID vaccine, and brings us into the forefront. We're concentrating on our own public image and the president. Now, I've got a lot more to say about this as I go through all of the planets. And I am going through all the planets because of what, as I mentioned, I'm leading up to in 2039, 37, 38, 39. You get the picture. Okay. And this indicates the moon is what we are instinctively drawn to. It does indicate the public. It does indicate change. Now, I don't mean the presidency is going to change because in just a minute, I'm going to talk about Saturn on the midheaven and the moon. And President Biden has gotten very strong, very determined. And as he said in his latest talk to the nation, it may not be his most recent one, but he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he was getting tough. He was not going to put up with this anymore, whether it's in-house or international is what I gleaned from it. And when you in your life have Saturn on your midheaven, you are at the top of your game. Saturn rules the natural zodiac, and we have an Aquarius midheaven in the United States chart and an Aquarius moon, which is co-ruled by Saturn. This gives our country and our public image strength. It strengthens leadership in the Democratic Party. Remember, 10th house, party in power. 4th house, party out of power. Now we have a new moon today, February 1st. And in the Eastern time zone, we've already had the new moon. It occurred early this morning, just a little while into the 1st. A new moon is when the energy starts moving forward. I love it. And so there for the next 2 weeks, what is emphasized is our midheaven and our moon. So we've got the sun, the giver of life, the center of our solar system, right smack dab on the president, the presidency, and the Democratic Party. The new moon just amplify. They're not working as a team. That's the retrograde Mercury. It amplifies it. It kicks it into action. I love that. Now, 2 weeks later, we have a full moon on the 16th in 28 Leo. The new moon is 12 Aquarius. The full moon, when things come to a head, that will be with the Republican Party. The 4th house, as I said, rules the party out of power. It also rules real estate. And we know that we have a seller's market going on. It rules all domestic affairs. It rules the weather. What's been going on weather-wise? Well, it's going to come to a head. There will be a continuation, and more so. It rules land, farmers, builders, crops. Because of the weather, we've had problems with crops. Our food prices have gone up. It rules seniors, okay? Let's hear it. And so that will be with us for 2 weeks. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. Now, let's talk about Mercury retrograde. You've already seen it in action. Hello, I'm your poster child. Mercury is what we think about and talk about. Now, when Mercury goes retrograde, most of you know, everything gets confused. It goes retrograde 3 times a year. It is a golden opportunity to tie up the loose ends of unfinished business, okay? We don't start new projects on a retrograde Mercury because they either fizzle out completely or have to be redone within the year. All right. So Mercury's been in our 9th house of the upper courts, the Supreme Court, foreigners, travel in general, long distance in particular, education, religion, the clergy, advertising, science, insurance, and as I mentioned, of course, the Supreme Court, and there is a vacancy coming up. Our philosophy, world trade, just lots of international focus. Okay. It will go direct in 3 days on the 4th. Now, it will move into the shadow of the retrograde until the 24th, which means while it's no longer retrograde, it sure does feel like it's retrograde. And so getting caught up, it can be confusing. I always say that the shadow after the retrograde, after it goes direct, is my opportunity to tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects that I just did not have the time to take care of while Mercury was actually retrograde. It's like the second chance, the second go round. Okay, on the 12th, Mercury is going to sit on Pluto, and that is the planet that has concerned me, as many of you know, since, for a couple of years, because Pluto is total transformation, out with the old, in with the new. Pluto rules viruses, pandemics. It rules death and rebirth. Now, I don't mean literal death. It rules secrets. And we are having a Pluto return. We're in the start of it. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And as I mentioned, if you go to raisingthevibe.org, you'll see my take on the next many years relating to Pluto. It's very, very important. So Mercury, what we think about and talk about, sits on Pluto. Lots of communication with people, foreign lands, about, well, war, because this can bring about an all or nothing situation. And right now, Russia and the Ukraine are kind of at a standoff. Then Mercury sits on our south node on the 21st. Now, the south node is what we have already mastered, and it comes easy to us. in a mundane chart, it can mean loss on some level, whether it's ties with a foreign country, perhaps over international waters. It can affect everything related to that ninth house that I just read for you. And there's lots of talk going on. The beauty of Mercury is it's not an active planet, it's a talking about it planet. On the 27th, it moves into the 10th house. And there will be more news coming from the president and the Democratic Party. Okay, that's the first thing I want to talk about. No, the second. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about what I mentioned earlier, Saturn on the United States midheaven. This is a very strength-giving position. In other words, it's getting tough. It's time to get tough, which I think is great. And as I mentioned, when you have Saturn on your midheaven, you're at the top of your game in your career. That's the leadership slot. It's the top of the chart. And so this can be very, very helpful to the Democratic Party. And it is a get tough kind of aspect. All right. Jupiter, well, I'm going to do Venus and Mars, and then we'll go on to Jupiter and Uranus. Venus has already gone direct, but it is in the shadow of the retrograde till March 1st. So, by the way, both Venus and Mars are going to be conjunct, which means they're sitting right smack dab on top of each other, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. That means Valentine's Day and the day before and the day afterwards. When I do my personal forecasts, which are on my YouTube channel, free of charge, of course, I went into detail about Venus and Mars in a personal chart. I'm going to do it again here because I want to bring some of that energy in. Venus is love. Venus is money. Venus is beauty. Venus is art. Wherever Venus is in your chart is what you love. And it's called the lesser benefic because Jupiter is the greater benefic. It brings blessings and joy and expansion. So these are the two good guys of the zodiac. Venus has been in the 8th house of the treasurer, of debts, of escrow, taxes, losses, and secrets. Now, there's a lot that goes on in government that is secretive for obvious reasons. We're talking about our national safety. And so there are some things that are best not played out in the news media. On the 23rd, Venus moves into our 9th house, where what we are blessed with relates to the upper courts, to foreign travel, to higher education, to religion, to science, to advertising, to insurance, world trade, all that good stuff. There's Mars working right there with Venus. Mars is war. Mars is passion. And in a personal chart, it's what you fight with and fight for. All right. In a mundane chart, in the eighth house, which is the house it rules in the natural zodiac, there are secretive fighting, secretive wars going on, which can relate to money, to taxes, to deaths, all secrets. On the 22nd and 23rd, it leaps forward and says, I'm willing to fight for my beliefs. And this can entail the upper courts and foreign travel, everything I've talked about with the ninth house. Now, combine Venus with Mars. Venus brings love with it. Venus tempers Mars. Mars is passion. It wants to do it now. It wants to fight for what it wants. And of course, Venus says, now, Mars, let's add a little love to the package. And so both Venus and Mars will sit in our ninth house. And so there, you might say, well, can there be war? Can there be fighting? Sure. But with Venus there, we've got a chance of, at least on some level, curbing what the impact of Mars alone would be. So I like that very much. Now let's talk about Jupiter, the greater benefic. It's blessings, it's joy, it's expansion, it's money, it's fame, it's all the good stuff. It is sitting in the 10th house, all right? It's been in that 10th house, blessing our leader, blessing the Democratic Party. And I'm not sure that everybody would agree with that, including the Democrats, because, you know, there's been, since January 6th, a terrible, terrible dissension here in our country. But it still enhances whatever it touches. All right, on the 13th, it's going to move into the 11th house of our chart. Now, the 11th house in a mundane chart rules Congress, congressmen, legislation, the treasury, all kind of city councils, its groups is what it is. I'm talking about our friends. This can be a wonderful time of reuniting, turning to our friends, nations which are our friends. And that's where the blessing can be. I also like the fact that it's entering the 11th house of Congress and congressmen. And in congressmen, I mean congresswomen as well. It's a generic term, not a literal term. So now Uranus, very, very interesting. Uranus, the rebel, has been sitting in our 12th house in the United States chart, causing all kind of trouble. Let me tell you about a mundane 12th house. Bribery, spies, hidden enemies. And these can be enemies within. They're hidden. Prisons, jails, hospitals, criminals, charitable institutions, seclusion, secret societies, secret groups, slaves. And this is, it starts with the definition of these mundane houses began years and years and years ago. And what I have changed slaves to this is my word, victims and welfare. So this is the old time interpretation. And some people are lifting up their past. And that's where the 12th house comes in, their heritage. So there's behind the scenes rebellion. And I didn't draw any arrows, but Uranus is pummeling the presidency and our public image. And that's why I said some of these public enemies, those hidden enemies are public, can be from within. Our public enemies are here in the 7th house. There's nothing going on there that I want to report to you right now. We know who our open enemies are. These are our hidden enemies. And there is all kind of plan being formulated. And I'm sure all the parties involved know who they are. And that's just what's happening. Now, I mentioned earlier that Pluto is very important right now because we are having a Pluto return, which does not normally happen in our lifetime because its return occurs every 240, I forget if it's 45 or 48 years, but between that. And Pluto has been sitting on Pluto. And Pluto rules global war. It's in the 9th house of our friends or neighbors across the sea. In other words, foreign countries. And so it amplifies the fact that Pluto can deal with global war. And when I realized what was going on between Russia and Ukraine, and war going on in other countries, I thought, well, the groundwork has been laid for that. And what we want to do, at least what I want to do, is create a situation that nips that in the bud. Because a Pluto return is also total rebirth. It is resurrection. It is transformation of the rules of war with people, with nations at a distance. And so I choose to see this as transformation. It absolutely can be that. So now, this is why I'm doing all the planets this month, because I want to keep my eyes and your eyes on the whole picture. And what you can do is, those of you who are walk-ins, star seeds, light workers, empaths, psychics, mediums, what you can do is during your time of meditation, simply send light to those areas of the world which need light. Keep in mind that Pluto rules viruses, and Pluto will complete its transit of the Pluto return. Most of it will be done and finished by the end of 2023, and there's just a little in 2024 when it comes back close enough to tap into our natal Pluto again. And so this is one of the things I've been watching. And of course, everybody knows about COVID. So this can bring about a total change in our policies, in our beliefs, in our foreign communications. And then there's good old Neptune. Now, Neptune is in the 11th house of Congress, again, congressmen and women, the Treasury, all kind of city councils and government councils, and our friends. And Neptune is idealism. Neptune is wishful thinking. And it is the dream come true. Now, I've seen it in my clients' charts. If I've done your chart, I've talked about the dream come true. In a country where you've got millions of people, it's more about wishful thinking and dissolving, a slow but sure dissolving of wherever it happens to be. And so it's either the dream come true or a gentle dissolution and disillusion of all groups, particularly Congress. It's in opposition to our natal Neptune. All right. Our natal Neptune is in the 5th house. 5th house in a mundane chart deals with fun, sports, children. And we know that there has been a lot going on relating to vaccinations for children, for example. It rules on another level. The 5th house, of course, rules sex in a birth chart. It can also rule sexual activity in a mundane chart. It rules gambling, theaters, and an opposition is either a balance or a pulling away from, and I'm thinking movie theaters, gosh. Well, we have movie theaters now online, right? It deals with the birth rate. It also deals with congressional and public hearings. Congressional and public hearings. And there's a lot of obfuscation, which is what I like to call Neptune in a mundane chart. A lot of a smoke screen, if you will. So one smoke screen is going to pull away from the other. It rules stadiums, and it rules anything relating to fun and games and children. And so this is a very gentle pulling away from make-believe, because with Saturn on the midheaven, we're dealing with reality. So I hope this has been helpful to you. And I hope you'll join me next month when we get closer and closer to the time when we have that final Pluto return, which I love. The webinar that I did for Raising the Vibe goes beyond that. If you watch it, please watch it until the end, because I think you'll find that it is inspiring and hopeful. So, and if I may be of service to you personally, if I haven't done your birth chart or forecast, just go to my website, MaxineTaylor.com, and order whatever you like. If you've got questions, ask. And so, my dear friends, till next month, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours and the United States of America. And those of you who are watching from other countries, may the stars shine brightly on your country as well, because we are one. We are in this together, my friends. We are not alone. And may the stars shine brightly, particularly on you and yours. Bye for now.